morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly LinkedIn live show with Adrian and Yan. This is the Career Success Show. It's been running since 2021.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah, we're also on Spotify. So once again, my name is Adrian and I'm the co-founder of Career Agility International. And together with me is Yan, our executive director and also co-founder.
That was so weird.
Yeah, I know.
So weird.
So anyway, we are here today to share lots of career ideas with you. And what's really exciting for us is that we have had lots of questions over the past few years that we have been operating. And it all comes in drips and drabs. So today we are going to start a new series called Just the Facts.
Yeah, and what we want to do today is to talk about resumes, which is my perennial pet peeve of all questions, because everyone asks me the same questions over and over and over again. And maybe if I can just redirect them to this podcast, then they won't ask me these questions.
Actually, that's a good idea. So just to clarify, I am not the expert in resumes.
I
Ian
am.
is the expert in resumes, okay? I don't like writing resumes because I do not have the eye for detail.
Not just that, I think it's also, a whole series of things.
Yeah, I got a short attention span, so...
But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to highlight was that recently we've been getting a spate of individuals who are urgently requiring resume services.
Okay.
And these individuals have already been through our programs and they have been very successful. And as we know, things work in cycles.
Yeah.
So we have had business cycles, ups and downs, and recently there's been a spate of movement. So the individuals, our clients, are coming back and saying, okay, wait, I need to get my resume done. Can you help me review again? Of course, I've had a hand in helping them prep their resumes in the past, so less effort, definitely. But they are still asking the same questions.
Yeah.
So
This
we
is more
want
like
to...
a place, right, where we can answer all the frequently asked questions about resumes. And it's going to be in a sequential manner where it gets the easier questions to the tougher questions. And most of the time, these are very basic questions at the front end. And towards the end of it, now we're going to ask questions that most senior managers who have been working for many years ask. So it's not going to be easy questions, it's going to be tough. And I'm sure you're going to stay on till the end of the program because you might probably learn a thing or two or more than that.
Well, let's get started.
Let's
What's
get
question
started.
one?
Okay, so the first question is this. Let's see, first question. So these are questions that were compiled from people who have been asking us questions all the while, okay? So the first question is this, Ian. How important are resumes?
Everyone thinks they're so important. It's almost like it's the be-all and end-all of my job search and my identity and everything all down, squished into these two pages.
2 pages, yeah.
And I beg to differ. How important are resumes? They're important, but are they very important? Are they the only thing? No, they're not.
Then in the bigger scheme of things, what we always say is the resume is important because you need to have that piece of marketing material, that document. But if you are looking at job landing, the resume plays just one small part of it.
Exactly.
It's part of a campaign, like what Yan always says, it's a campaign that that follows through from your branding, follows through to your market knowledge, follows through to your pitch, follows through to your positioning, all the way right straight down to the interview itself. So the CV
And
is
the
just
thing
one
is,
link in the chain, right?
it's just one of many things, and everyone
But
goes
it's the one that everyone
on.
focuses on it.
Everyone goes on and on about it. And I want to just put a little, I guess, an important bookmark here. Okay, everyone listen up, okay? When someone says, can I have your resume? You don't want to be overly ready and saying, here you go. Here you go. Because the resume is not free size. And if I were to use the analogy of a bespoke suit, you want the resume to be exactly what your reader needs to see. So your resume is more than one version. This is really important. It's more than one version, and you don't want to be overly eager and like passing it out, because the action of just throwing your resume out there sometimes diminishes your value, your perceived value. So please remember, the item needs to be bespoke. It needs to be laser beam accurate to the reader that's going to be reading your resume, which means you're going to have multiple versions, like a ton of versions.
That's a good point to note. And that's why each one has to be customized and bespoke. So bear that in mind. Now, another typical question is this. What is the ideal resume length?
I think this one I haven't had too many issues with, because people know the shorter the better.
Yeah, but what's the
and
longest resume you've received?
like 12 pages.
12.
No, but I had a PowerPoint presentation as well, a resume
Okay.
that was presented in PowerPoint format with multiple slides.
Wow.
No, don't do that. So quick and dirty answer. So how long should your resume be? 2 pages. And sometimes,
Can I stretch it to 2.5?
well, if it's going to be 2.5, you might as well make it 3 whole pages.
Three.
So don't do a half big thing. So back to the original question. So how long should a resume be? 2 pages maximum. The more senior you are, the shorter it gets.
Really, I would imagine that the longer you've worked, the more stuff you shove into the CV.
You'd think so, right? Because the more things you put into the resume, the more junior you feel. Because you look like you're trying too hard.
Okay.
Things that should be like common knowledge. Why are you writing all these menial tasks when this is no longer relevant?
That makes a lot of sense.
It's true.
And we're gonna tap on this topic in a short while later as well.
Next question. Do I need a cover letter, and what goes into one?
I get it a lot. So in the old days, where you would have to mail off your CV in an envelope and put a stamp on it, for the Gen Z listeners, you might want to Google what stamp, envelope, and post office actually are. And then what you need to do besides sending a CV itself is a cover letter to explain what a CV is, who you are, and what jobs you're applying for. In today's context, you don't really need it because ultimately what's happening is you have a situation where you send in an email. So you don't really need a cover letter unless the company says that you must submit a cover letter. More often than not, the email itself acts as a cover letter. But the big question is what goes on a cover letter? That cover
Nothing
email.
much. Very short and sweet.
I've seen cover letters almost longer than the CV itself.
And you wonder why. Write a message or a letter or an email. You know, when you write a message or a letter or an email, you project a bit of your energy into it. So if you write a long letter, it almost seems like you're trying really, really hard to convince me that you're perfect.
It's hard sell, right?
And you
too much of a
wonder
hard
why,
sell.
you know, when you go on a first date with somebody who's trying too hard, you kind of get a little bit put off. So no, the email cover should be very, very short.
And confession time, okay? Headhunters like us, we don't usually spend too much time on the cover letter, covering email. We want to pop straight in. However, if your cover letter is way too long and way too wordy, we're thinking this guy, maybe I'll skip to the next one. So it could work against you if your cover letter is too wordy. What do you put in the cover letter?
It's an introduction, or and more importantly, the introduction is more like a purpose statement, like what it is that you're looking for next, or perhaps why you are looking out, and then very, very short 2 to 3 points on how you fit the role, and just say you look forward to next steps.
Yeah.
It's very short.
Correct. So keep it short, keep it sweet. Otherwise, there will be too much noise and the recipient won't read it. So the whole idea of the cover letter is to get the recipient interested enough to click on the CV and open it up. And hoping it's not a scam.
You've noticed that the word CV and resume are currently being used interchangeably. I'm a purist, so I'm sticking to resume even if it's 3 syllables long. Adrian is lazy, and so he's using CV. If you want to know the difference, just look it up. And right now they're just interchangeable, so it doesn't really matter. So Adrian, next question. What upsets you the most when you have to read a resume?
Okay, a whole long list. Let me see my laundry list of. Okay, number 1, a CV that's way too long. That upsets me. Number 2, okay, the biggest warning sign for me is when I see a functional CV. Okay, a functional CV versus a chronological CV. What's the difference? A chronological CV is what a normal CV is, where the person puts his jobs by chronology, by time. What's his most recent one, the one before that. A functional CV is where the person does not put his job career history there, but he puts, I have finance, and then he lists down the finance. In company A, I did this finance function. In company B, I did the finance function. And then he does a leadership. In company C, I did this leadership role. And then so that's he categorizes it by functions and capabilities only, rather than by chronology. Now, you're probably asking me, why does that upset me? It upsets me because the moment we see a CV like that, we know he's hiding something. He's hiding a very patchy career. So as much as you're trying to avoid not possibly big gaps here and there, or possibly you might have a situation where you're very short tenures, okay, very bad. So that's why he's hiding it by putting all the functional pieces in there. When we see that, it turns me off. It doesn't really piss me off, but it turns me off. How about you?
The thing about functional resumes is that there's always a place for it, and there are individuals whose functions are repetitive. So in 20 years, can you imagine if you're an SAP consultant and you specialize in a specific module, and that's all you've been doing? The only difference is the type of clients you manage and perhaps the scale and the scope of the project. So you find that it takes up a lot of space if you were to write company A, SAP consultant, company B, SAP consultant. So it becomes repetitive and long. So a functional resume does work for those instances, but I would recommend that you indicate each organization and each project by its time, and then to have that functional component in another separate section. But yeah, rarely used. So I don't recommend functional resumes at all, maybe less than 1% of the time.
There are certain instances where you could require a functional resume. One of it is, for instance, if you've been in a company for 15 years, and you've done different roles, and therefore you want to highlight. For example, also if you're a doctor or a surgeon, and your CV, if you want to send a CV, you want to specialize, I specialize in this, I've done these surgeries before, I've also run teams and managed teams. That one makes sense because it's, no, you don't agree?
I don't agree.
Okay, why not?
I don't agree because I think it depends on the individual as well. A physician is a very different person for the type of resumes that we do, right? And so there are very, very unique ones. So the bulk of executives that we work with in the corporate environment would have a 2-page resume, ideally reverse chronological order with enough relevant information. A physician, an academic, and very, very interesting types of professions I think I would give them a pass on the length as well as the type of resume they choose to write. But if you're a physician or an academic, please come look for me and I'll help you write your resume. Very, very different. Very different.
Or if you're a SAP programmer with many years and you don't know what to write. Okay, cool.
What else bothers you when you read resumes?
Okay, bad English is for one. How about you? What pisses you off?
I don't like resumes that I cannot immediately get the data with one glance.
Oh.
And the thing is this, remember Adrian was confessing? I confess the same thing because when I was recruiting, even today, if you were to send me a resume, I'd look at the name and contact details, a glance right through that. I'd read the summary, and then I'd look at organizations that they worked for. And then only I would, if it's worthy. I'd give it an extra minute or two to delve into each of the roles, which means I don't even see the roles or the details of each of your jobs until after you have passed the summary part.
And also because if you see a role like finance manager, finance director, you kind of know what he does.
Exactly.
So you want to see the skill and scope. So
exactly.
Putting in things like balance the accounts, GL, GA, it's not going to look good on your... It's going to make you look very operational rather than...
Which is why when the layout of the resume is overly designed, it's too much going on, and truth be told, human eyes don't like reading columns. We don't. We read from left margin.
About fancy layouts.
We read from left margin to right margin. Keep it simple. Keep it sweet. Keep the font size neat, and so.
And keep the fonts neat as well.
Simple font, like Calibri, Arial.
You cannot go wrong with Calibri.
Yeah, don't do anything
Comic Sans.
weird. Fonts in itself not a problem. But you know what is when someone chooses to bold and then italicize, and so in one paragraph there'd be some bold,
guilty as charged,
some italicized, and then some emphasized and maybe emboldened and larger. It can be very, very tough on human eyes, and that frustrates me a lot because I read a gazillion resumes on a regular basis. Last thing I want to do is to read something that looks like a ransom letter of alphabets that have been cut out from the magazine. It's really difficult to read. Very difficult to read. Yeah. So I think between something that doesn't give me the data at one glance is frustrating, is because of all these other little things.
So what should you leave out of a resume?
Everything personal. We don't need your date of birth. We don't need your marital status. We don't need your sexual orientation. We don't need your reason for leaving.
Salary details.
We don't need your salary details.
And let
Well,
me
actually, we do need your salary details, but I don't want you to put in your salary details
And
because you want to talk to a human being in order to be able to extract that information.
And let me share with you, our listeners out there, why you should not put your salary details on your CV, okay? Because I know of certain search firms, what they do is they'll print out your resume, okay? And because they need to process it and everything, they shuffle it around. And then when the search is done, they got stacks, reams and reams and stacks of paper. Okay, what do? They don't shred it. Some of them, the workers, the staff will just bring it back for their kids to do math, draft paper. I'm not kidding you. I've seen it before. And I've read the CV, the personal details are there with the salary, address. You do not know where it goes to. So you don't really need to put in your CV, on your CV, what's that, your
personal information, IC number, number of children.
Address, those are very particular ones which you don't need to put in. Okay, so don't put it. You know what really gets my goat when I see a CV? Yeah, I know this person is really old school. References available upon
Request.
And don't put it in. It's not necessary. And skills, MS Office.
That shows outdatedness.
Yeah, and it shows laziness. You know why? Because when we see that, we know that it's from a 1998 template, which you just bolted on and appended new stuff, and you forgot to take that bottom part off. So don't put reference upon request. Do not put your Microsoft Office.
Leave out referee information as well. I mean, the line that says references available upon request is understood. So that's stupid, but it's just one line. Can you imagine if you give out private information, private contact details of your actual referee as well?
I've seen it happen.
And if the printed document somehow finds its way into someone's home, some kids using it, and then it goes to school, and then someone sees it, and it's not worth the risk.
Wait a minute,
on that note,
that's my someone put me as a referee.
On that note, a quick tip for our listeners out there. Okay, so if you're asking me why, but if I don't put my salary information, what if the recruiter doesn't call me back? Here's the tip. By omitting information like salary information, if the candidate is good on profile, do you not think that I would call you anyway? I would. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's relevant information is going to trump information that you provide just because they asked for it. And the strategy
also,
here is to enable you to at least be speaking to a human being, and the human being there can answer your questions as well. So if the recruiter is asking you, so what's your salary what's your salary, and then you can say, well, yeah, I'm about this amount, but since you're on the phone, can you tell me more about whatever?
And the interesting thing is this: a good headhunter worth his salt. Looking at your profile, you roughly know what the salary levels are already.
Anyway,
so,
yes, exactly.
So putting it in merely serves to confirm his idea or to discount you totally because you're either overpriced or underpriced. So why expose yourself to an increased risk of rejection? Just leave it up.
Yeah, you don't even need to put in other things. Notice period. There's a whole bunch of things. Yeah. Hobbies.
Unless the hobby is
interesting
in line with. I once had a spaghetti company as a client, a very big Italian spaghetti company. You probably know which one it is. And one of the candidates that we put forward, he was a chef. He was a part-time hobby chef and cooked a lot of. So he put it in, and it was interesting because that showed where his passion was.
Which is fine.
But if your hobby is like stamp collecting or.
And again, this is generic, right? Right now we're doing sweeping statements in general.
Terribly sweeping statements.
Don't put the hobby in. Yeah. There are always exceptions.
Okay, so now let's move on to we've done the generic questions. Okay.
Have we?
Yeah, it's kind of generic-ish. Okay, now here's the tougher questions I have for you. Okay, so a senior executive who is in his mid-late 40s, who is at a VP level, the approach to writing a CV would be different from someone who is junior, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And what would that strategy be?
I think the biggest and hardest for people to understand is that your summary is not a been there, done it kind of list, a laundry list of where you've been. Your summary should answer the question, what I can do for you. And it has to have a certain future forward timeline in that statement. So the language that you would choose to write is very, very specific and very unique to each reader because on each company you apply to. So it's a bit trickier because it all boils down to this statement. It's about your positioning. It's about how you can help them solve a problem. So based on your past, based on your competencies, you have to write statements that enable the reader to immediately see not just what you have, but how you can help them moving forward.
So
That's very tricky.
So the language used has to be quite specific and quite to the point. And in other words, you probably need someone who's extremely good at articulating, or you.
A lot of individuals are thinking, oh, I can get ChatGPT to write it for me. You can. But that summary becomes a laundry list. And it looks exactly that the generic resumes look exactly like the specifications of a laptop.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, just a whole list of things like features. The tricky thing with writing a good resume is how do you infuse benefit statements?
Yeah,
It's very tough.
That's true. Because you want to sell the benefits of
Not the feature.
experience. Yeah, not the feature. So,
Yeah.
so if you have problems, just come to us. We don't just do CVs blindly. Okay, I think it all has to do with your positioning. Your CV and your resume, the tonality, the approach, the positioning has to sit upon a very firm and sharp and clear positioning. So that's where we need to sit down and probably fine tune it.
And we've been nagging about positioning for the longest time.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done this, gosh, you're headhunting for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been headhunting and then I've been doing the career coaching as well. And I think people still don't quite get what positioning is. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's easy, but it's tough.
And the problem is, if you are the patient, okay, a lot of times you're in the thick of it, you cannot understand, you cannot have that third person perspective, that depth of field that someone external would have. That's why a lot of our clients, they come in, we share with them how to position themselves, because it's something that comes with experience. And combined two of us, we have more than 40 plus years of experience in this space. So come talk to us if you are trying to figure out how to ungenerify yourself.
I think the language is how do you differentiate yourself?
Okay, how do you differentiate yourself? How can I, as a senior leader, highlight and showcase my leadership capabilities?
Everyone has leadership, isn't it? You know what bugs me is like everyone from the age of 5 until 67 are going to have good leadership skills. Everyone does. It's one of those generic, ubiquitous skills like interpersonal and communication
Project
and leadership
management.
and teamwork and result orientations, all
So they say lah.
BS, right? It's BS because it is understood and it is a soft skill. A soft skill that everyone claims to have because we do to some extent. So if you are trying to showcase a specific soft skill, I recommend that you tell a story, and this is a lot tougher than you think. So you have to write the story out in a bullet point in your resume, and how do you derive that story is actually a STAR: situation, task, actions, and results from achievements past. And so you look at the achievement and go like, okay, so who did what, when, how long, how much, how many, and what was the outcome, and what was my part in it. And then you have to write the story. So how do you effectively showcase your leadership skills? You tell a story. But how do you tell that story? Therein lies the trick, because you have to write a very succinct bulleted statement in your resume, and that's not as easy as it seems, but it's also not that hard as well. I mean, you just have to active verb something that resulted in something, and immediately it showcases more than just your leadership, because it'll showcase your timeliness, it could showcase your driven, showcase that your ability to pull people together and all of that, because all of those are the orbiting soft skills that combined in a story that is telling so much more than leadership. But some of the worst sentences I've seen: showed leadership skill in doing A, B, C. And I'm like, I'm sure you've showcased much more than that. And it sounds like that's the kind of statement that tells me you're very junior. So
That's a good point. That's a good point. The language use, right?
Language.
Or one question I always get as well is, I have 30 years of work experience, which the guy's probably the person's probably in the 50s. How far back should I go into my resume? Because don't forget, you got to squeeze it into 2 pages.
Yeah, and you can. I've worked with a lot of people. In fact, the more senior you get, the shorter it becomes. It's amazing what I can do with your resume.
And
How far back should you go?
How far back should we
You
go?
should go far enough. That means all the way. You cannot commit the sin of omission. Don't, because if you omit information and you get found out, even if I understand that you don't want people to know your age, it's coming out sooner or later. And if it does, then you have questionable integrity.
So what you're saying is some people try to hide the age by omitting the first 3 jobs they had prior to 2000.
I think you can do that on LinkedIn, but you can't do that on your resume.
Yeah, that's right. So don't do that. Do not omit stuff. You have to put in some kind of place marker there at least to
Yes.
show. that-
Even if you had a career break, I think you should indicate that. Do
I-
not
I
have
agree.
those dates kind of like, I finished with company A at say in 2021, then I started in company B 2023, then I'll just like push company A up to 2022 and push company, and sort of like close that gap. Don't do that.
Similar to this point is the next question. How do I address gaps in my career
what
on
it
my
is.
CV? Should I hide it, or should I leave it blank, or should I try to overlap it?
Never. Don't hide it. Don't overlap it. Just put it out there. It's coming out sooner or later.
I actually seen a CV before. He literally fudged the dates on his CV.
Yes.
So in other words, he lost his job in January, say 2018, and then he finally got another job in December 2018. He did it itself, and so he actually put from whatever start date to 2018, and so he left the months out, and then from 2018 the second job to the job.
I
So
think that's okay.
it's questionable, but
I
they're
think
gonna
that's
ask you
okay.
what's gonna happen. What do you think of that?
I think that's okay. I think if it was your design to not put the month in, then it's okay. But if it breaks into from 2018 to 2019, and that the gap is right there, it could be a problem. So if you have a career break, I think the world today is fine with it.
I think so too.
And so if haters are gonna hate anyway, you don't want to work with these people. So move on, okay? But I feel like you should go out to the world and say, look, these are my scars, these are my skeletons. If you have a problem with it, then don't waste my time. Let's not waste each other's time. And that should be a very healthy attitude to go out to the universe with. So don't go out to the universe trying to be someone you're not. And if you had a career break, you had a career break.
Yeah, I think the world
difference-
has gotten much kinder
Because
to people with
everyone
breaks.
understands gigs these days as well. And so if you have a break, put it in your resume, because today we're talking about resumes. Put it in your resume, but don't just say took a career break. That's terrible. But you say you can call it a sabbatical, you can call it a training time, you can call it a career break too. And then what was the purpose? So if during your career break you've done some education, you've gotten certified in something, you've gotten better at something, or you went on a world trip to try to rescue some barrier reefs, do it.
Yeah.
Just write it down, because I think it's okay, and something like that sometimes is a lot more helpful than trying to hide something.
True. Often folks like us who are veteran headhunters, recruiters, HR managers, one look at the CV, we can sniff something out. So it just jumps out at us. And one of the things we do look for are breaks. And we don't mind breaks, but as long as you can explain it away, I think it's okay.
Yes, and again, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so if the person is feeling all awkward and weird, and it comes across as prevaricative, I think, gosh, this person went to jail, or this person had some issue with the law, and I immediately jumped to the wrong conclusion. So again, don't fudge it, don't hide it. Just be clean, and sometimes nothing's better than the
You know
truth.
what?
And seriously, if the haters are gonna hate, move on.
I once had this client, I think I told this story before, American guy, and from 84 to 90, he was with a software company in Russia. And when I asked him for details, he was very sketchy on the details, and very generic, very very sketchy. And he's in the security business, so I surmised that he was a CIA spook. So I can't tell. I can't remember. It's too far ago. It's too long ago. What are you doing in Russia? Those are the old days. No. So it's quite funny. But on a separate note, I just watched a very interesting show the other day. Movie. It's Tetris.
Okay.
How Tetris was. It's a Russian game, right? You played Tetris before, right?
Yes.
How it got to the US and everything. So there was a lot of like spy undertakings.
I shall put it in my list of to watch.
Yeah, it's quite funny. So that was during the period as well. So maybe he might have been involved in the Tetris, moving Tetris to Asia. But anyway, I digress. So if you have certain specific periods of your career where you cannot talk about, well, it's okay. You can explain it away at the interview itself.
Yes. If you get a chance to get the interview.
Yes, if you get a chance to do it. So yeah, and one final question for a lot. We get a lot of questions from this one particular from senior managers and directors and very very senior folks. Is CV or executive bio? Which one is better? Which one should we do?
You do both because it depends on what the need is. So if you need an executive bio for your corporate presentations anyway. If you were a panelist or a speaker, you'd have to have a 2 to 3 paragraph write-up about your background anyway. And so that's your executive bio, and it's a good one to have because you've seen this in all the corporate websites where they have information about key executives, and then they have a little blurb and a little write-up. So you should always have an executive bio on hand anyway. The resume is important, especially if you are presenting yourself for a role or a job. That's all there is. It's just one of your many things in your toolkit.
So the question is, when do you send? So if a headhunter calls you up, says, "Can you send over your CV?" Do you send your CV or you just send your executive bio?
Before that, I'd ask the headhunter a couple of questions first, like what's the role.
So they've explained everything already.
So if there is a viable opportunity, and there's an opportunity, I'd send the resume. The bio, executive bio is not necessary in this instance because we have LinkedIn.
True.
So you actually don't need a bio anymore.
So it's actually your executive bio. Your LinkedIn is your executive bio, so to speak.
Exactly. And frankly, a bio is kind of like something you might use if at the one of those pitch decks. If you're ever going out there and you're pitching for a consulting gig, an assignment, at the end of the pitch, at the back, there's one page, and that one pager is your bio.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the same thing. They have something on the back. So you don't seriously. You want to have multiple ways of reaching out to your audience. Specific to today's topic, which is about the resume or CV, you want to have multiple versions. So you're going to end up with a gazillion different versions, each one tweaked and tailored, customized to the specific audience. So I'll leave you with this question. Who do you think is more important in your own resume? You or the reader?
Me. It's all about me.
The answer is the reader. The reader is more important than you because you have to make sure the reader gets what you're trying to project.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more question.
Yes.
Content versus readability. Who wins?
I would say readability because if it's not readable, content won't matter.
Exactly. So my friends, please make sure your document, your resume is readable.
I've seen wall of words type of CV.
It's terrible.
I want to cry.
And you hear all sorts of silly things that people are doing to try to trick the ATS. Don't waste time.
Yeah. And you know what's the annoying thing about wall of words? Because the guy recognizes that wall of words is hard to read. So he bolds certain keywords, and then he bolds, and then he makes it bigger font, and then he underlines it.
Yes.
And it becomes a word salad.
It
looks like a word salad.
It's the worst thing ever. It looks like a ransom note. It's not nice. Yeah. So between content and readability wins. So don't over design, no icons, no infographics, please no photographs, no infographics. You can have URLs, that's fine. Hyperlinks are great, but keep it simple, keep it easy on the eyes. Human eyes have not met with technology. So the ATS can handle all that wall of words, but actually human eyes cannot.
Yeah, and if you're a senior executive, I wouldn't worry too much about ATS. Okay,
Yeah.
figure about your own marketing campaign to land yourself that job. So so if you're having troubles with your CV, or more importantly, in the bigger scheme of things, if you're having problems or challenges looking for a new role, whether you're out of a job, whether you're currently in your job looking for something even better, come talk to us, info@careeragility.org, and we're always here ready to help. And in terms of CV wise, I think you can probably do a decent job on your own if you listen to the good advice that we've shared with you today, as well as some other good advice you would probably pick up from some of the recruiters you might hear or meet. Okay, but don't forget, there's no perfect CV.
Yeah, exactly. And you know how I would get someone coming to me and said, Headhunter A said I should do this. So I'm adding it in. And then my ex-boss from this other company told me I should do this.
Yeah.
And I'm adding that in. And by the time you're done, you end up with Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And it's not going to fit anyone's needs. So again, just keep it simple.
Stupid.
Think about who's reading it
Yep.
and give them what they want. So if the headhunter wants more, just give them what they want. But only to this one guy.
So, in the bigger scheme of things, let's take a quick step back and do a quick revision, okay? Your cover letter is one job. Your cover letter should be short, sweet, and piquing enough interest for the person to want to see your CV that's attached, okay? Which means that your cover letter has to have very relevant information.
Letter or email?
Email, cover letter/email, okay? The CV itself, resume, has only one function: to be relevant and interesting enough for the person to want to meet you. And when the person meets you, the interview itself is to get a feel for the job, get a feel for the role, and let the other company have a feel for you as well. Okay, so every component of the campaign has its own very specific strategy. Come talk to us if you're in a job search mode. Okay, have a great weekend ahead, everybody. And once again, the long weekend is here. Chinese New Year weekend is coming up very soon. So have a great weekend ahead. Don't forget to spend time with your family. Don't forget to spend time on your health. And there are things that make you happy.
Take care and all the best.
Have a great one. Take care. Bye.